Hello, everybody, and welcome. My name is Julie Mann, and I show men and women how they can lead healthy, happy, sustainable lives. And I'm really delighted because today I'm joined by a brand strategist. Hi, Fani Nacheva.
Good morning, good day. Hi, Julie. Good to see you.
And you. Now, a lot of people don't know much about who you are, certainly my audience anyway. So it'd be really great to start from the beginning, if that's okay. So I know that to do what you do, and I don't really know much about brand strategy, hard for me to say, but I know that you need to obviously be creative, but you also need big vision, don't you? So is that something that you learned from your family?
Wow, amazing question. Yes, it is something I learned from both my parents. I grew up in Bulgaria, so I wasn't born in the United States. I grew up in a communist country. So it was a bit restricting in that way, but my father was a writer and also a professor at the university, and I grew up in a house full of books, and I still do this, as you can see, because it makes me feel at home. And since very little, we spoke about books, and I think the whole concept about looking at things from a zoomed out perspective came from books and from conversations with my father about it. So I learned specifically from him. We spoke about literature all the time, and he would give me a book and then we'll discuss it. And he'll ask, well, what do you think about that? And I think, maybe I did even start reading these big volumes and Dostoevsky and Sartre and way too early. And I was like, my head was full of philosophical thoughts, but later in life, I think it really helped me. So I definitely learned that from my father.
Wow, how amazing. So what were the kind of challenges that you had to deal with in terms of living in a communist country?
Well, for one, it was very overboard political propaganda all the time, and it was hard to just tell really what's going on, because we didn't have anything in parallel or to compare to. At least me, because I was quite little. I was I was born into communism, and then when it fell apart, I was 20. And so my whole childhood was immersed in it. It was really kind of sparse, in a sense. Even with colors, everything was really kind of lacking vitality. And we only had one TV station, and our stores were not really the way they look in the West. We only had a few products in the stores, so I would say it was a little bit. It was interesting growing up, and there was this one kind of gum I remember I liked. And when my father went abroad to a conference for the first time and brought home like these 15 kinds of gum and candy, I cherished I kept them forever. I didn't want to eat them. We were just I was so mesmerized. And for me, it was, from very early, it was the kind of this pull and magnetism of the West that we were, and then eventually we get even more infatuated with it because of music. All the music came from the West, and it was challenging. I can't say I had an unfortunate childhood or anything like that, but I do remember my parents always whispering, making jokes about Big Brother. And it was always the kind of situation where, oh, we can't speak about this aloud. Oh, we can't talk about any of that outside or in public. So that kind of restriction and we had friends who had gone to jail for even lesser than that. I was quite young and I couldn't grasp all of it, but eventually when I started applying to colleges to go study abroad, and when the whole perestroika happened, and also the thing fell apart, the free market economy, flooded us, and then also freedom of speech. And then I could see what it's like to have more than one news station and more than one TV station, and newspapers and things like that, freedom of speech in the media. So
was that overwhelming, Fani, to suddenly be, to have that available to you suddenly?
Yes. And even the country, even the political figures admitted we don't quite know what to do with the country. We don't have trained leaders. We don't have even diplomats. But I think the most overwhelming thing by far was the free market economy and the choices. I think there's something about living in a sparse environment, being kind of limited, and then all of a sudden your mind explodes with commercial choices, and it's confusing. I mean, I think it's confusing even now, because I'm in marketing, and I know when you give more than one choice to your customer, they get confused. We just didn't know. But I remember joy. I remember we were just so happy. We were overjoyed, and it was, I think there was confusion though, and a little bit of fracture of focus, maybe. We just didn't know what to do with it, what to make of it.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I hear that the brain likes to have 3 choices. So having more than that, that's tricky. So did you have dreams or aspirations as a young girl, Fani? Do you remember what you wanted to do? Did you have any kind of idea?
Yeah, I remember I always wanted to be like my father. And I think now that I kind of analyze everything, I think I'm a very good writer. In fact, I'm a better writer than I'm a designer. And I remember that I wanted to be like him, but also I started writing early and I was just enjoying it so much. But I don't think I knew I wanted to be anything. I think from a very early age, when people would ask me, what do you want to do? I always said, we're talking 5. I always said a queen. And and it's just so not who I am right now. But eventually I was writing in my diaries, I was writing essays, I was always writing something. But eventually when I became to be 20, I rebelled against what my family was, which was a writer and a doctor too. And I said, I think I'm just gonna carve my own path, and I'm gonna go to America. I'm just gonna be a graphic designer. Because there was no tradition of any visual artists in my family, so it was a little bit of a defiant thing to do. But I think if I think back, I think I just kind of wanted to be in charge when I was little.
Yeah. So what was it like then going to America? Because that's a massive step, isn't it?
Yeah, it was overwhelming, and I mean also very exciting. And I had a full scholarship full scholarship to go to study in Boston, and I happened to go to all women Catholic school, which was a crazy thing to do coming from an atheistic society. And then, so 1, it was a religious school. 2, it was all women. But it was 4 years of intense studies. I was living in the dorms, and so the culture flooded me. And I knew the language because I had tutors early on, and I spoke a little bit of more than I knew the language really well, but the culture was shocking. The fact that I had to open a bank account and balance a check and battle with credit cards and just be all of a sudden this self-directed, disciplined adult was just very stressful.
So what happened after your studies? You know, how did you get from there to where you are today?
It was a long journey, but I think as soon as I came to Boston, I knew that I kind of want to make a life for myself in America. My family was really disappointed when I didn't come home after I graduated, because I went to an interview and I got a job right away, and it was also stressful to always fight for a work visa and having the papers and making sure you're legal. And because I could not, I always had to have a job. I couldn't have a gap between. So that I'm legal in the country. That was one aspect of my life that was so stressful that it actually prevented me, I think, from being creative or even giving into the freedom of being who I am. But at the same time, I learned how to think about restrictions. So I was functioning in a society as an immigrant, and always having to, to apply, answer to some rules. And I think it prepared me for later on to have my own business. So as soon as I graduated, I started working in an advertising company, and one, and then another one. And then the third company I worked for actually sponsored me for the green card. And it happened to be in the year of September 11. And I was just so happy that I was going to get citizenship finally. And then they dropped me. They fired me. I lost my job. I lost my green card application. And I was kind of like, not on the streets, but, psychologically, I had a month to switch directions and figure out what to do. So again, another hurdle, another restriction, and when all I wanted to do is just commit myself to my profession and work. And there was just always something, a hurdle and this and that. And I just decided to apply for grad school then, which I did. But long story short, I eventually ended up in California because I met my future husband. And who would have known that that's how I got the green card eventually. But we also started our own business together, moved to California. And but I'll never forget how hard it was for me to fight for so many things when all I wanted to do is work. And all I wanted to do is just have clients or do a good job. And there was, and so I have a 12-year-old son now. And I kind of always talk to him about the freedom of not being fully free, but just always having a limitation, which I think is kind of a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, and I guess it shapes who we become ultimately, doesn't it? It's not the good stuff that really builds character. It's the challenges that we go through and the way we deal with it. So I mean, there might be some people watching, Fani, who actually don't really know much about brand strategy. So tell me what you actually do.
Okay. So we build brands for small businesses, and that means that we started actually as graphic designers, but we eventually started doing the messaging for all of our clients. And right now we build brands for service businesses, which are maybe businesses like mine and yours and mine, Julie, people who offer services, not necessarily products. We build their brand from scratch, which means not only visually, not just the logo, the website, not only the brand materials, but we work on shaping their brand voice, their messaging, which is important because eventually we found out that even if we build a shiny website, it doesn't serve the client if the message is falling off on deaf ears. So now we kind of do everything. And we also shape the business strategy, which is if there's so many small business owners, and I know because we've been there, we started as freelancers, are working so much and they get burnt out because they don't quite know how to shape their offers, or they're working for money per hour. So I advise my clients also on shaping their offers and maybe a little bit of business strategy, which is how to offer flat rates or be profitable. So from all I said, I know it's overwhelming, but really there's three aspects to branding, and we do all three now. It's the visual aspect, it's the communication aspect, which is the message, and then there's the business aspect. So a lot of brand strategists, some just do the visual, and some actually they're known as graphic designers, and some do the messaging, not all. But the strategists who do all three things are, actually tend to be quite expensive, and we're not that expensive, but it is ultimately, if you know that your brand needs help, I think the way to know how to hire a strategist is to kind of evaluate where you are in business and exactly what your objective is. Because you would know who to hire, and the prices vary tremendously for branding too.
So if someone hasn't got any money right now and they're watching, have you got any advice so that perhaps they could start to see a difference in their results, because somehow their brand isn't hitting the spot with their customers?
Yeah, if they're just starting, I would advise to really just start to get out there and start selling your services, and try to get as many clients as possible so that you can test your your process, or find your voice. Also find, who do you like to work with? Who's your ideal client? The more offers you make, the more clients you get, the more prepared you'll be to eventually shape everything and, put it in a nice little formula, tie it with a bow, and call it a brand. But if you're just starting out, I don't think it's important to even have a logo. It's not important to have an expensive website. I think the most important thing is to get clients. So forming relationships, outreach, and just talking about your offer. And maybe get some advice on the offer if you're confused of how to shape your services.
I guess ultimately it's all down to the relationship, isn't it? The relationship we have. Yeah, that's what a good relationship.
It really is, and it's so crazy weird forming these relationships on Zoom now, and because you and I found each other that way. But it's super easy now. If you invest curiosity and also attention, I think it's easy to do strategic outreach and find people to connect with. It's about the relationship, and it's not a short-term strategy. It's kind of a long game. You have to invest yourself into it. But I think clients will come from it.
And also it's about being curious, really curious, and caring about the other person, not just being about what you want and, your outcome. It's really about finding out what the person you're talking to needs, if they need anything. And maybe it might not be your business, it might be something else, but that's what matters, isn't it? That connection.
Yeah, Julie, you nailed it. I think it's even when we're business owners, because I deal with that all the time. My clients use so much jargon in their messaging, and I think it's because sometimes we kind of hide behind it, and we forget that the other person across the screen is a human being, and all we have to do is kind of talk to them and talk about them. And it is about curiosity, focusing more, getting outside of yourself, not talking about yourself all the time. I know it's harder said than done, but if you keep remembering, our favorite subject at the end of the day is thinking about ourselves. So if we want to, that's what our clients want too. They want and if we talk about them, not us, and we're also inject some emotion and some personality in it, you'd be great. but it's always about the other person across.
Yeah. And also it's really important that no matter what we're saying and how we're listening, that we are being ourselves, isn't it? It's really important to be authentic. It's no good having, you know, all sorts of, you know, jargon and language that maybe someone else has created, but actually doesn't really fit with who you are. It's so important that it's a match, isn't it? And it's an alignment with you and your energy and what it is that you're trying to say.
Yeah, and I think that's such a human, the human condition is, don't know why, I don't understand why that is, but we're actually, I think, ultimately kind of want to blend in. That's my philosophy. I think, of my opinion of, and it's really sad actually, because we all have sparkly personalities, and we also all of us have a backstory. Imagine if we connect with it and we own it, and what can we do with it? But not everybody necessarily does it. I think it's because it requires diving deeper, asking questions, finding out who you really are, but being authentic. And as trite and overused that word has become, is very, very important, I think, in life in general. But it's you wouldn't believe it, it's the hardest thing, for my clients, and for me too, for my personal journey, finding who I am, sounding like Fani, you know, just knowing who I'm not, as much as who I am.
Yeah, brilliant. You talked about the fact that, you know, a lot of people who do brand strategy, I don't know why I'm finding it so hard to say that, strategy charge a lot of money, but actually you're very, very competitive. Why else might someone choose to work with you? Why are you the person?
Well, I have to say, I might be strong flavor for some, so obviously not, you know, not for everyone, because I kind of lean on bravery, and I lean on actually also language bravery, and shaping a specific message that's really personable. But so if you're ready to stick your neck out, I would say come talk to me, because we're gonna go deeper into where you've been, where you're now, where you really want to go. With the thing with branding is that you cannot be very subtle, because you have to be able to speak so that the people in the back can hear you. So it's about being ready to stand out, in more than one way. And I think that if you're generally tired of feeling, oh my God, everything I do sounds so generic, it's not me, and I'm always looking over my shoulder what other people are doing and copying other brands, and I have this syndrome where I don't know, I know I have an idea of what I want to do and how I want to sound, I just don't know how to do it, but I'm tired of sounding like everybody else. I would say come talk to me.
Brilliant, because the whole world is talking and trying to sell their thing, aren't they? So you've got to stand out in a way that's authentic. And yeah,
I know the noise. And I think also the world is forming opinions about us all the time based on no information whatsoever. So if you have an idea or a personality that's in the front of your business that is a differentiator, at least they'll form an opinion on your best ideas, as opposed to no information. Yeah. That's why I think it's important to build a brand.
And not to expect everyone to like us, because that's not how it is in life, you know, but there are enough people who will like us. And that's the important thing, is it not get into that scarcity mindset about it. You can't appeal to everybody, because not everybody's looking for what you got.
You cannot appeal to everybody. And I think ultimately the reality is, at the end, especially for small business owners, how many clients do you really need a year? It's not a massive amount. So I think it's important to keep that in mind, and just relax and know that they're out there. Yeah. And there's clients for all, you know, there's clients for everyone, for all of us. So, but it's important to find the people. It's important to look for the people that are looking for us.
Yeah.
You know, it's got
fishing for them rather than
it has to be.
Yeah. So obviously I'm going to put all your links, Fani, below this video. So please, everybody, check Fani out. 2 last questions. So what is it that you do, Fani? Because I know you love what you do. What is it you do when you're not working?
When I'm not working, I go swimming, which in California is a bit cold. Even North California is not as warm as everybody thinks, but I try to swim the whole year, even in the winter. So I either swim or I read or I watch movies, these are my favorite things, and spending time with my family.
Wonderful. When you're no longer on this planet, how would you like to be remembered?
Wow, Julie. I mean, you know what? I always wanted to be interesting. I think if I hear someone said she was an interesting person, not boring, I would love that.
Fantastic. Well, it's been so interesting talking to you. Thank you so much. Fani Nacheva, all there is for me to say is I really, really appreciate you talking to us today.
Thank you, Julie. It's so good to know you. Thanks for inviting me.